Welcome to the All Sorts podcast, where we really try to cultivate curiosity and harvest understanding.
That's a great way to put it.
Today, we're embarking on a journey, sort of into the very fabric of our food.
Yeah.
We're exploring how science is making those invisible, essential nutrients, well, not just visible, but more abundant.
It's fascinating stuff.
Imagine crops, straight from the earth, but packed with more of the vital elements our bodies need. That's the vision behind our deep dive today. Biofortification. Enhancing nutrition right at the source.
It is a really fascinating field, and you've shared some excellent resources for us to dig into. We've got articles from Just Agriculture, the big overview on Wikipedia, some specifics on wheat from igab.com, and a quite detailed review from PMC on real-world impact.
Right.
So our goal today, I think, is to really get a handle on what biofortification actually is, how it works, its potential, which is huge, and maybe touch on some real-world examples and things to consider.
Okay, perfect. Let's start with the problem it's trying to solve. Something often called hidden hunger. It sounds a bit mysterious, but the scale is massive, right?
It really is. We're talking over 2 billion people worldwide affects them, especially in developing countries. And it's hidden because it's not necessarily about not having enough calories.
Right. Not just feeling hungry.
Exactly. It's about lacking those crucial micronutrients, vitamins, minerals that our bodies absolutely need to function properly, for growth, immunity, everything.
And the sources mention specific ones.
Yeah, the big ones that keep coming up are vitamin A, zinc, and iron. They're consistently highlighted as major concerns. A lack of these can have really serious health consequences, even if people are getting enough calories overall.
And the Just Agriculture article had a pretty stark statistic about zinc, didn't it?
It did. Citing WHO data from 2015, it mentions zinc deficiency alone threatens the lives of about 0.8 million people and nearly 500,000 children each year globally.
Wow. That's huge.
It is. It really puts into perspective why finding solutions like biofortification is so critical.
Okay, so let's define biofortification itself. You said it's about enhancing nutrition at the source. How's that different from, say, adding vitamins to breakfast cereal?
That's the core distinction. Biofortification increases the nutritional value of crops while they are growing. Ordinary food fortification happens after harvest, during processing, like adding iron to flour or vitamin D to milk.
Got it. So biofortification is about fundamentally changing the crop itself or how it grows.
Pretty much. It's about building that nutritional value right into the plant.
And how do scientists or farmers actually do that? What are the main methods?
Well, Wikipedia outlines 2 main strategies. First, there's conventional selective breeding. This is essentially what humans have done for millennia, selecting plants with desirable traits.
Like bigger fruit or drought resistance?
Exactly. But in this case, the desired trait is higher nutrient content. So you find plants that naturally have a bit more zinc, for example, and you breed them together over generations to amplify that trait.
The sort of time-tested approach.
Right. And the other main route is genetic engineering. This involves more direct modification of the plant's genes in the lab to enhance its ability to produce or accumulate specific nutrients.
Okay, so conventional breeding and genetic engineering. And I think the PMC review also mentioned farming practices themselves, agronomic approaches.
Yes, absolutely. Agronomic biofortification. This focuses on adjusting how we grow the crops. It's not changing the plant's genetics necessarily, but rather managing the farm environment to help the plants absorb more nutrients from the soil or from fertilizers.
Interesting. So multiple angles to tackle this. Why is biofortification seen as such a key strategy then, especially compared to just giving people supplements or fortifying processed foods?
A big reason is reach, particularly for rural populations. People in remote areas, or those who rely heavily on their own farming, might not have consistent access to commercially fortified foods or supplements.
Oh, okay. So biofortification works with the foods they already grow and eat.
Precisely. It leverages existing agricultural systems and dietary staples. If the rice or maize or beans they already depend on are naturally richer in essential nutrients, that's a very sustainable way to improve their diet. It integrates right into their lives.
That makes a lot of sense. Are there examples where this has actually worked, made a measurable difference?
Oh, definitely. Wikipedia provides some really compelling ones. In Mozambique, for instance, they introduced orange sweet potatoes, biofortified with beta-carotene.
Which the body turns into vitamin A, right?
Exactly. And the result, they saw a 24% reduction in vitamin A deficiency among children who ate these sweet potatoes. That's a significant public health impact.
24%. Wow, that's not trivial at all.
Not at all. And there are others. Trials in India with pearl millet biofortified with both iron and zinc showed positive results too. Improved iron status in school kids, higher hemoglobin levels in younger children.
And hemoglobin is key for carrying oxygen related to energy levels and anemia.
Right. And speaking of anemia, the WHO estimates that biofortification, particularly for iron, could potentially help the 2 billion people worldwide affected by iron deficiency anemia.
2 billion. It really drives home the potential scale of this. It's one of those aha moments about how agricultural science can directly impact human health globally.
It really is.
Okay, let's circle back to those agronomic methods you mentioned, boosting nutrients through farming practices. The Just Agriculture article and that figure 1 they had laid out some specific techniques. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. Agronomic biofortification is all about giving the plant the best opportunity to take up nutrients. The article highlights 4 main ways.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is soil application. And this is maybe the most intuitive. If your soil is deficient in, say, zinc or selenium, you add fertilizers containing those specific micronutrients to the soil where the crop is grown.
Just enriching the soil itself. Makes sense.
Exactly. Feed the soil to feed the plant. The second method is foliar application.
Foliar. That means leaves.
Yep. Instead of putting the nutrients in the soil, you spray a nutrient-rich solution directly onto the plant's leaves. The leaves can absorb these nutrients, and then they get transported to the edible parts, like the grains or fruits.
Huh. Like a direct nutrient spray for the plant. Interesting. What's number 3?
Number 3 is nutri-priming. This happens right at the beginning. You soak the seeds in a solution containing the target micronutrients before planting them.
Soaking the seeds.
Yeah, the idea is the seed absorbs these nutrients, giving the seedling a head start and potentially boosting the nutrient levels in the final harvested crop. Kind of like preloading the seed.
Clever. Okay, and the last one.
The fourth is soilless cultivation. Think hydroponics or aeroponics. You grow crops in something other than soil like sand, gravel, or even just nutrient mist, and you deliver a precisely controlled nutrient solution directly to the roots.
Very high-tech controlled environment.
It can be, yes.
Right.
It allows for really precise control over nutrient delivery, which can maximize uptake. But, as the article notes, it often requires significant infrastructure and can be more costly.
Right, so maybe not practical everywhere, but potentially very effective.
Exactly. And the Just Agriculture article's Table 1 really shows the impact these methods can have. There were some striking examples.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, one study they cited showed foliar application significantly boosting zinc in rice grains. And then there were a couple on wheat using soil application. One study by Aziz and colleagues reported, get this, 122.38% increase in zinc content in wheat grain.
Whoa, over 120% increase.
Yeah. It just shows how effective these targeted agronomic strategies can be in dramatically improving the nutritional profile of staple foods.
That's incredible. It really highlights the power of managing the growing environment. Now let's zoom in on wheat because the IGAB.com article focused specifically on that. It's such a globally important crop.
Absolutely fundamental. Wheat provides something like 35% of total global food consumption. It's incredibly adaptable, grows almost everywhere, massive for food security.
And production's been increasing too, right?
Yes. The article notes that trend, reaching around 765 million metric tons in 2020, driven by better practices, but also just sheer demand.
But despite being so widespread, standard wheat isn't always super rich in key micronutrients, is it? Especially iron and zinc.
That's the issue. Naturally, the levels can be suboptimal. And then, the milling process, turning wheat grain into white flour, often removes a significant portion of the bran and germ.
Where a lot of the minerals and vitamins are concentrated.
Exactly. So you lose nutrients. This makes biofortifying wheat a really attractive and hopefully cost-effective strategy to tackle those widespread iron and zinc deficiencies, especially affecting billions in Asia and Africa.
Okay, so how are researchers approaching wheat biofortification specifically? The article mentioned 3 main routes.
That's right. First, again, is conventional breeding. Selectively breeding wheat varieties that naturally have higher iron and zinc levels.
Using wheat's natural diversity.
Precisely. Though the article mentions that the genetic variation for these traits might be a bit limited in modern high-yielding cultivars. But there's huge potential in looking at wild relatives of wheat, which often have much higher nutrient concentrations. So breeders are trying to cross those traits back into modern lines using techniques like mass selection or pure line selection.
So tapping into the ancestral gene pool in a way. What's the second approach for wheat?
The second is mutation breeding. This is a bit different. It involves inducing genetic mutations in wheat, usually using radiation or chemicals.
Intentionally causing mutation.
Yes. The goal is to create new genetic variations, hoping that some of those mutations will lead to desirable traits like improved yield, quality, or in this case, higher micronutrient content. Then you select the plants with the beneficial mutations. The article notes this has actually been quite successful historically for improving various crops.
Interesting. A more interventionist approach than standard breeding. And the third method?
The third is genetic engineering, or GM. This is the most direct approach, where scientists modify the wheat's own genes, or perhaps insert genes from other organisms, specifically to enhance micronutrient accumulation or bioavailability.
So really targeted gene changes.
Right. The article highlights its potential for achieving high nutrient levels and doing so relatively quickly. But it also points out the challenges things like public acceptance, regulatory hurdles, patenting issues, and ensuring affordability, especially for farmers in developing countries.
Okay, so 3 distinct strategies for wheat conventional breeding, mutation breeding, and genetic engineering, each with its own potential and, well, its own set of consideration.
Exactly.
Which brings us neatly to the broader challenges. Biofortification sounds great in theory, and we've seen promising examples, but getting it implemented successfully on a large scale must involve hurdles, right?
Absolutely. It's not just about developing the crop. Consumer acceptance is a big one, as Wikipedia points out. If a biofortified food looks or tastes different, well, people might be hesitant.
Like the color issue you mentioned, yellow maize seen as animal feed or orange sweet potato being unfamiliar.
Precisely. Food habits are deeply ingrained. People might prefer the traditional white maize or white sweet potato, even if the orange version is packed with vitamin A. It shows you need more than just the science.
So education and communication are key.
Crucial. People need to understand why the food might look different and what the health benefits are. The good news, according to Wikipedia, is that studies suggest people will often accept and eat these foods, even with color changes, once they understand the benefits. Transparency is vital. People shouldn't feel something's been changed without their knowledge.
Makes sense. What other challenges are mentioned in the sources?
Well, IJAB.com raises several technical and practical points. Understanding how a specific crop variety performs nutritionally across different environments, that genotype-environment interaction, is complex.
Right. A high zinc wheat might perform differently in wet versus dry conditions, for example.
Exactly. Then there's the challenge of phenotyping, actually measuring the nutrient levels in thousands of plant samples accurately and affordably. That can be a bottleneck in breeding programs.
Just the sheer lab work involved.
Yeah. And then there's bioavailability. Just because a nutrient is in the food doesn't mean our bodies can easily absorb and use it. So researchers need to ensure the extra nutrients are in a form we can actually benefit from.
That's a really important nuance.
It is. And of course, climate change is a big overlaying factor. How will changing temperatures and rainfall patterns affect the nutrient content of these crops in the future? Plus, just agriculture briefly touches on safety. Rigorous testing is always needed.
Wow. Okay, so environmental interactions, measurement difficulties, bioavailability, climate resilience, safety, lots to consider.
Definitely. And IJAB.com wraps it up nicely by stressing the need for coordination. Researchers, farmers, consumers, policymakers. Everyone needs to be working together for this to succeed widely.
It really highlights the journey from the lab to the field to the plate is complex. Now, let's look at that journey more closely. The PMC review analyzed how biofortified crops actually reach people these impact pathways. What did they find?
Yeah, this review tried to map out the different ways people get access to these foods. They identified 4 main pathways.
Okay.
First, direct purchase people buying biofortified products, maybe flour or seeds, in a market. Second, informal settings, think gifts, sharing between neighbors, community seed banks.
More traditional social networks.
Exactly. Third, formal settings, things like government food programs, school meals using biofortified ingredients. And fourth, farmer household consumption farmers growing the biofortified crops and eating them themselves.
Seems like that covers most bases. Did the review find that we know more about some pathways than others?
Very much so. The overwhelming focus of the research they reviewed was on that 4th pathway, farmer households consuming their own production.
Ah, interesting. Mostly looking at farmers eating what they grow.
Yes, particularly with orange sweet potato, OSP, and its impact on vitamin A status. They mentioned specific projects like the Reaching End Users, or REU, project in Mozambique and Uganda, and a survey on high iron beans in Rwanda.
And what did those studies show? Were they successful?
They generally showed positive results within that pathway. For instance, the REU project found that households participating were consuming more OSP and had better vitamin A intake. In Rwanda, growing a specific high-iron bean variety meant families ate beans from their own harvest for about 20 days longer each year compared to those growing standard beans.
So clear benefits for the farming families directly involved.
Yes, providing access to these seeds seems to work well for improving consumption within those farming communities.
But what about the other ways people might get these foods? Buying them, getting them through schools or aid?
That's where the review found significant gaps. There were far fewer studies looking at direct purchase, informal sharing, or formal programs. They found some examples, like OSP being sold in cities in Mozambique or biofortified foods in Brazilian school lunches, but overall, much less evidence.
So we need more research on how these foods move through markets and programs.
Exactly. The review strongly recommended more studies on these other pathways, looking at different crops, different countries, and crucially, measuring whether people's actual micronutrient levels, their vitamin A or iron status, are improving through those routes as well.
Right. It's one thing to consume the food, another to see the health impact definitively.
Precisely. We need that full picture to understand how to best scale up biofortification to reach the most people effectively.
Okay. Well, this has been incredibly insightful. We've really unpacked biofortification, seeing it as this really promising strategy against hidden hunger. We've looked at the different ways it's done.
Conventional breeding, genetic engineering, those agronomic practices.
Right, and seen some genuinely encouraging results, like with the sweet potatoes and pearl millet, but also acknowledged the very real challenges.
Definitely. Acceptance, implementation hurdles, making sure the nutrients are bioavailable, and, as we just discussed, understanding all the ways these foods reach people.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? As we learn more about food and health, how will biofortification reshape our food systems? Could it really help build a more nourished world?
It's a powerful question. And thinking about the different approaches, agronomic tweaks, breeding, GM, what's the right mix for the future? Lots to consider.
It certainly is. And speaking of nourishing and growing things, just like a seed holds the promise of a harvest, your engagement helps us here at the All Sorts podcast grow.
Well said.
If this deep dive sparked your curiosity, please share it. Let these ideas take root. Subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube. Keep that stream of knowledge flowing. Explore our back catalog, our garden of past episodes, if you will. And, follow our journey on X, Instagram, and Threads. That's where ideas often blossom into conversations. Your support really does help us keep doing this.
We genuinely appreciate everyone tuning in and learning with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today. We look forward to our next deep dive together right here on the All Sorts podcast. Until then, stay curious.